Collier Wise. Here. Erickson. Here. Holland. Here. Humphrey. Here. Mines. Here. Price. Here. Sorensen.
Here.
Ward. Here. Mayor Powell.
Here, would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have minutes from May 21st regular meeting and May 21st special meeting. Any corrections or additions that anyone knows? Motion is second to approve both sets of minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Adoption of the agenda. John or Mike, do you know of any changes to the agenda? Okay, there's a correction on item 6E. The last line, it should be June 28th and July 21. And on the it's correct on the other part, but it's just on this part. Okay, with that correction.
Move approval of the agenda as corrected. Second.
Motion is second to approve the corrected agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Under visitors to be heard, addressing the council, persons addressing the council shall use the microphone at the podium. Please raise your hand to be recognized, go to the podium, and state your name and address. For items that are not on the agenda, members of the public may speak under visitors to be heard on any topic not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes and no decision will be made at this time. For agenda items, public testimony will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item after the subject has been announced by the mayor and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item. Public testimony will then be closed and the topic will be given to the governing body for possible action. At this point, only city council members and staff may discuss the current agenda item unless a council member moves to allow another person to speak and there is unanimous consent from the council. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to staff or a member of the public through the presiding officer at any time. At this time, is there anyone in the audience that has an item they wish to bring forward that is not on our agenda? Anyone have an item that's not on our agenda? Okay. Seeing none, then we'll move on to public hearings. Item A, a retail on-off sale malt beverage license and a retail on-off sale wine license for Circle 13 LLC for West Side Inn at 1313 West Cherry Street. And Mike, please.
Applications were received for the retail on-off sale malt beverage and retail on-off sale wine license from Circle 13 LLC for the West Side Inn located at 1313 West Cherry Street. The notice of hearing and police chief's report on the applicant are included in the packet. The on-off sale malt beverage license would be for the licensing period beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019, while the retail on-off sale wine license will be for the period from when it's approved until December 31st, 2018. City Council has the ability to issue a license on basically two criteria: suitable person and suitable location. As to suitable person, Circle 13 LLC has two stockholders, being Judy Benson and Catherine Peel, who both had the DCI background check completed, as is noted in the police chief report. With respect to the location, an on-off sale malt beverage license was previously issued to David Robbie for the business at this location. The license fee is $300 for the on-off sale malt beverage license, of which the city retains half and half is sent to the state, and the retail on-off sale wine license is $500, which is retained by the city. Following input from the public hearing, the City Council will be asked to make a decision on approval or denying of the retail on-off sale malt beverage license and retail on-off sale wine license for Circle 13 LLC for the West Side Inn. The owners, Judy Benson and Catherine Peel, are present if you have any questions.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on this item? Anyone wish to comment? Okay, we'll turn to the council. Okay, motion is second. Now we'll take a question. Go ahead, Brian.
Could I have one of you come up to the podium, please? I just have a quick question. When did you guys buy or purchase this property?
The closing date was March 28th of this year.
Okay, so it's very recent then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all that I have.
Anyone else?
Any further questions from the council? Seeing none, we have a motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, first reading of ordinance 1378, amending Title 15, Land Usage, Chapter 155, Section 155.080, amending bed and breakfast language to provide for 5 bedrooms, implement an average of 10 guests per night, and delete a maximum length of stay. Dan, please.
Yep. At the April 2nd, 2018 meeting, City Council approved a variance that requested for a request to allow a bed and breakfast to have 5 units instead of the 4 allowed by the city code currently. The City Council asked at that time for an administrative review of the current city code or this current city ordinance to provide feedback about possible changes or updates. After reviewing other cities in the state and the South Dakota state law, staff does recommend updating the ordinance dealing with bed and breakfast establishments rather than relying on individual cases and individual variances. A presentation was given during the special meeting of to members of the City Council at 12 p.m. May 7th, 2018, and the consensus was to move forward with the agenda for an item of public hearing on June 4th tonight. The City of Vermillion Planning Commission also met on May 29th, 2018 for a public hearing and approved the recommendation to amend the current city ordinance to increase the number of bedrooms for a bed and breakfast from 4 to 5, limit the occupancy maximum to an average of 10 people per night, and repeal the length of stay requirements. So for tonight, administration recommends that 155.080 bed and breakfast establishments should be amended to allow 5 bedrooms instead of the current 4, add the requirement to limit the maximum occupancy to an average of 10 people per night, and repeal the length of stay requirements in order to align with the South Dakota bed and breakfast regulations. Pending your questions, that's all I have right now.
Thank you, Dan. Again, it's a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on this item? Seeing none, turn it to council. Tom?
Rich, go ahead.
I just threw my glasses away, so I
Okay.
can't talk.
You can't talk, okay. I know I asked you a couple questions at the noon meeting. And I don't want to belabor the point, but are we deleting the 14-day limit because nobody else has it and the state doesn't have it, and so we just want to kind of match them? Or were we actually asked to delete the 14-day limit?
We weren't asked to delete that. It's just aligning with no other cities have it, and there was no record from talking with the Southeastern Council of Governments. So, and the state of South Dakota doesn't have it, so there was no record of why it was in there to begin with. So in order to just start from scratch, aligning with the state requirements.
Again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rich?
With these changes, will we match the state code essentially, or is there other things that they do that are unique that we haven't addressed?
There's
Or
not.
did you have a chance to read it all? I'm sorry.
I did. There's nothing else that's really unique. Some of the other requirements, like I talked about this afternoon, where they need to register with the state health department. They need to maintain record books of who stays there every night, and so forth. These were the only major differences that stuck out from other cities. The one that really stuck out was the maximum or the length of stay requirements.
Okay, so you don't see any changes further in the line as of right now?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Council? A motion and a second to approve ordinance 1378. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks, Dan. Item 6C is first reading of ordinance 1380 to rezone 720 North University from GB General Business to R3 Residential District. And Jake, please.
Thanks, Mayor. All right, so this petition for rezone was submitted by Harlow Hatley of Hatley Investments, LLC, and regards 720 North University, which houses the Cherry Lane Apartments. I've got a map here showing this area. Cherry Lane Apartments are multifamily residential dwelling, constructed in 1965 and contains 48 rental units. Prior to the 2008 rezone, this was the B1 zone. It's notable at that time, B1 zoning allowed for residential uses. After this was changed to general business in 2008, that made the residential uses non-conforming, and that eventually was why the rezone is being sought now to bring it into conformance with the zoning code. So in January of 2018, staff, we received this rezone request. So we made up the petitions that the applicant circulates. Again, to have a rezone go forward to the planning commission, you need to get 45% of that aggregate 250 feet around the property to sign off. At the April 30th planning commission meeting, Pam Jacobson of Premier Realty reported that USD had declined to sign their petition, and that's notable because of the size and location of the university in relation to this. It makes up 96% of the aggregate, so you could have every surrounding neighbor sign and you still couldn't have it come forward without the university. There is an option in city code that allows a city-initiated rezone to take place without all of those petitions being signed. So Planning Commission felt like this was something that they would be willing to take on. So at the April 30th meeting, they agreed to schedule a public hearing, which took place at the May 29th meeting, where the Planning Commission considered this petition for rezone. That time they voted City Council to recommend approval of this. And so this time City Council is asked to consider the first reading of Ordinance 1380 to rezone 720 North University from general business to R3. The only concern staff might have is that this will not be adjacent to any other R3 zoning, and so it could be considered spot zoning. It is notable that if this is denied, the property can't be considered for a rezone request for another 6 months. I believe Pam Jacobson of Premier Realty is here to speak on behalf of the applicant. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Jake. A public hearing, anyone in the audience wish to comment on this at this time? Seeing none, council? A motion and a second to approve first reading of ordinance 1380 to rezone 720 North University from GB general business to R3 residential. All in favor? Question, I'm sorry, question, Catherine?
Could I ask, is the university's declination to sign the petition with a reason, or just they just didn't get around to it?
Yeah, so that might be something the applicants can speak to. I can't. I can tell you that the possible signatories don't have to give a reason to sign or not sign. It's totally, up to them if they'd like to do that.
Okay.
Steve, please.
Does anybody know if the university was represented at the planning commission meeting?
They were not.
Okay, so.
They
And
were
not represented here either?
Yeah, they were notified. We do mail letters to every property owner within 250 feet. We also put signs on the property.
Thank you.
Further, Catherine?
Can we get an idea just about the discussion that the planning commission had about why to move forward with it, even though it's sort of spot zoning like?
Yes, kind of a couple of points. The first was, I would think, why the planning commission felt like they should move ahead with the city-initiated rezone. I know one point of discussion was that the university chose to sign a petition for the creation of the Dakota Commons Planned Development District. In that case, the property also was right across Dakota from the university. The university did sign there. It didn't sign on these. There was at least one planning commission member that felt it was somewhat contradictory to sign one and not the other. I can't necessarily be the judge of that. In terms of the spot zoning question, it was stated that even though this borders, it doesn't border R3, it does border residential uses within the university itself. It is right next to some residence life. So it felt like, I think it was stated by some of the commissioners, they didn't feel like it would be totally beyond the pale to have R3 where it is.
Further discussion? Brian?
Jake, what was the vote that they had?
It was unanimous.
Tom?
It's a curiosity when you look at the map that it actually, we talk about spot zoning whenever it comes up or as a possibility, and usually there's just, I don't think there's ever, well, quite often it isn't unanimous. I mean, this looks like a bullseye. I mean, talk about, it looks like spot zoning, but everybody seems to think it's okay. Is this tied again to they can't do anything else with it except residential, or, going from this general business classification?
I believe Pam Davison would probably be able to speak better on behalf of what the applicant, their wishes are. My understanding is this is being sought to bring it into conformance with the zoning code. I know if you're trying to sell a property or get it insured, if it is not in line with the zoning ordinance, that can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, because the property north of that used to be an apartment complex, and now it's called McFadden Hall, which is residential, but it's also dormitory, so there's a real mix in here. So I think it's real curious, like it's being asked. There wasn't a lot of discussion about spot zoning on this, so I'm surprised.
Other discussion? Do we have a motion, I think? We have a motion, a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Motion carries. Thanks, Jake. Item D, first reading of ordinance 1381 to rezone 707 North Plum and 713 North Plum from general business to R3 residential district. And Jake, again, please.
All right, so this one is very similar to the rezone you just considered. So this petition for rezone was submitted by the owners of Plum Villa LLC, and it deals with the Plum Villa apartments, which are 5 multifamily residential buildings. They each have 12 units. 2 of the units were built in 2004, the other 3 in 1977. Again, prior to 2008, this was in the B1 zone, which meant the residential uses were allowed. After it went to general business, those became non-conforming uses. Again, we received the petition for rezone January of 2018. Staff made up the petitions to circulate. The university, in this case, makes up 70% of the aggregate, and we heard at the May 14th Planning Commission meeting from Sean Brady of Plum Villa LLC, reported that USD declined to sign this rezone petition. Sean is here additionally if you have any questions for him. Again, at that time, Planning Commission voted to move forward with the city-initiated rezone and scheduled a hearing on May 29th. Again, at that time, Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to City Council for this. So City Council is asked to consider the first reading of Ordinance 1381 to rezone 707 North Plum and 713 North Plum from general business to R3 residential district. And if denied, the property couldn't be considered for a rezone for another 6 months.
Thank you, Jake. A public hearing again. Anyone in the audience wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council? A motion and a second to approve the first reading of ordinance 1381 to rezone 707 North Plum and 713 North Plum from general business to R3 residential. Further discussion. Steve, please.
Could you run through the answers to the kind of the same questions that we asked for the last one?
I would say they're pretty much identical
Okay.
to the discussion on the previous item, that, they felt that, the university, they weren't sure why the university didn't sign. The Planning Commission members felt like it's an issue that, the landowner is stuck. The university does hold veto power, and felt like it should be discussed in terms of the question over spot zoning. I certainly believe that this could fall into that. It is notable that it does border R4, and so it's not, completely separate from other residential zoning districts.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Motion carries. Thanks, Jake. Item E, special daily malt beverage and wine license for the Vermillion Cultural Association on or about June 23rd, June 28th, July 21, and August 18, 2018 at 4 West Main Street. And Mike, please.
The Vermillion Cultural Association has submitted their application for special daily malt beverage and wine license for fundraising events at 4 West Main Street. The notice of hearing, the police chief's report are attached. The organization also submitted listing of the Raise the Roof fundraising events and who would be at them is included in the packet. The police chief report notes that he had talked with Shannon Cole, who reported that they would be checking IDs and using wristbands. The Vermillion Cultural Association has a retail on-off sale malt beverage and retail on-off sale wine license at the Coyote Twin Theater. The special daily fee was received. Following input from the public hearing, the city council is asked to make a decision on approval or denial of the special daily malt beverage and wine license. Shannon Cole is here if you have questions on the events.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone in the audience wish to comment, please?
Hello, my name is Shannon Cole. I live at 118 South Pine Street. Mayor, councilors, good evening. My name is Shannon. I am the new executive director of the Vermillion Cultural Association, replacing Jason Teal. I just wanted to thank you for your consideration of this motion. We will have several, a continuation of several special events throughout the summer and probably throughout the years, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Thank you. Anyone else? Turn to the council then. Motion and a second. Discussion.
I just had a quick question. I first welcome. This is for the Vermillion Theater, right? Because it's at 4 West Main, and for fundraising, especially for the roof, I understand that.
Exactly. These are concerts being held as part of our Raise the Roof concert series that all of the funds will go to, particularly funds from the sale of beverages, will go to the fund to fix the roof on the historic Vermillion Theater downtown.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything that's changed in there since the last big event? Like, is there seating or anything yet, or is there?
What do you
is it
consider
all
the last big
basically
event?
an empty floor still, or?
It is not an empty floor. There are tables and chairs, and we have some lounge seating as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Old business, item 7 is a second reading of ordinance 1375 to rezone 800 Jefferson and 816 Jefferson from R4 Residential District and GB General Business District, all to R3 Residential District. And again, please.
All right, last rezone of the evening. This one was submitted by Charles K. Sallison of Austria Apartments and Storage. You can see that we have 3 different lots. I've got the map here. One is a parking lot located in R4. The other 2 parcels have multifamily dwellings on them, seeking to take this all to R3. Planning Commission considered at the May 14th meeting, voted unanimously to recommend City Council approve the petition. City Council approved the first reading of the ordinance at the May 21st meeting, and so tonight City Council is asked to hold a second reading of ordinance 1375 to rezone 800 Jefferson and 816 Jefferson from R4 Residential District and GB General Business District, all to R3. If denied, the property could not be considered for rezoning request for 6 months, and because this is the second reading of an ordinance, a roll call vote is required.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience comment on this? Okay, turn to the council. A motion and a second to approve. All in favor signify by saying, oh, sorry. The results are 9 yes and 0 no. The motion passes. Thank you. New business, item A, first reading of ordinance 1376, amending City of Vermillion Code of Ordinances, Title III, Administration, Chapter 32, to create, provide the structure for, and responsibilities of historic preservation. And John, please.
Thank you. A couple months ago, or actually last year, Susan Gray contacted the city about setting up a historic preservation commission here within the city limits. Clay County already has a historic preservation commission. We did some research and learned what some other communities in our state do with respect to a local historic preservation commission. And then we sat down and started with the draft historic preservation ordinance that the state provided for us, and that's evolved into the ordinance that you see before you this evening. Basically what the ordinance does, it outlines some of the duties of the Historic Preservation Commission, which relate to educating the community about preservation, helping to document sites, promote conservation of sites, and offer guidance on preservation are a few of the duties and responsibilities of the commission. It would be a 7-member commission as proposed in the ordinance. 3 of those individuals would be from designated historic districts in our community. It also calls for 2 individuals from particular disciplines, and those are listed there in the ordinance for you. History, architectural history, architecture, planning, urban planning, American studies, American civilization, cultural geography, cultural anthropology, or related fields. Like many of our other commissions or boards with the city, recommendations would be made by the mayor, and the approval would be by the city council. Individuals serving this commission would have 3-year terms. The first group, there'd be some that assigned 1-year, 2-year, and 3-year terms, so as not to have all the terms expire at one point in time. Susan Gray has been very helpful in putting this together, in offering some perspective and comments that way. I think she may have some comments she'd like to share. Otherwise, we'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, John. Susan?
Thank you. Good evening. And I would like to first of all thank you for taking the time to consider this, and also for John and Jake and Jose, who worked with me through this process of putting this all together, and I really appreciate this. I have a list of about 7 reasons to create this commission, and I will kind of go through them quickly. I know I'm limited to 5 minutes, but this may take care of some questions if you have them. But those of you who may have attended the preservation conference that was held here several weeks ago know that there are many financial benefits of supporting historic preservation. And I'm happy to see that this is already in process. You know, here in Vermillion, there are already these kinds of projects going on. But the reason for this commission would help to legitimize the city's commitment to historic preservation. I do feel the city has a commitment, but again, I think this would legitimize it by putting it on the books, and also to contribute to the city's progress on the 2035 comprehensive plan, which has quite a bit of language concerning historic preservation. I feel it will provide a framework to go beyond what is much appreciated right now, but also is currently simply a handshake agreement concerning historic preservation between the CCHPC personnel and the city. And if those were to change, then we may not have those handshake agreements anymore. So this would be one way to help legitimize that. I feel that this commission would also provide a vehicle for the city to create code for historic preservation if and when necessary, and choosing to do so. That would also provide a vehicle for the city to formally seek input on permitted actions based on Department of Interior standards. So I think this commission should obviously be in, very well versed on the Department of Interior standards and being aware of those and how those should be implemented. It also provides potential for the city to receive grants from the State Historic Preservation Office if approved as a certified local government. And lastly, it creates another voice for historic preservation in the city. And this voice, I think, could serve to help buyers and owners of historic properties to be more aware of the tax incentives that are available to them and other grants. And also, I think it would encourage the city to work together of the 4 historic districts, the 3 residential and the 1 downtown, to help them to have a forum to really work together to work towards historic preservation in a cohesive manner. And just other thoughts that I've had over the process of putting this all together, that we have discussed, that there are 3, as is stated, that there are 3 representatives from the residential districts on the membership. And we have had some discussion as to whether those should be residential property owners or just simply property owners from that district, because property owners could be, any type of property owner, but there are other seats on the commission available to people who perhaps own properties in those districts, but to feel that there would be actually representation from people who actually live in those districts, I think it's an important component. But also I do think, again, in retrospect, we're kind of leaving out the downtown district, that perhaps if council agrees, that perhaps there could be a designation that there actually be a representative in some capacity from all 4 of the historic districts. But I leave that to your jurisdiction. And again, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you, Susan. Anyone else in the audience wish to talk on this topic? Is it suggested that if three come from, that one would be from each of the residential areas? Or could multiples come from?
That was the bulk of our discussion, and from my perspective, yes, that there would be perhaps a resident from each of the four, of the three, and then probably whether it would be a business owner or just a property owner for the downtown, but the same thing could apply. And in the residential districts, those of us who actually live there, have much more a different perspective on the historical nature and the preservation of the districts than those people who may own properties and do not necessarily live there. So.
Would it make sense to, as long as we're doing this, make sure there is one from the downtown
yes.
area?
Yes,
Jim,
that's what that's what I feel. We sort of neglected to put that in there, but I think that would be important, in my opinion.
Jim, can we do that tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Turn it to the council. Tom, please.
Thank you for your work on this. I know the County Historic Preservation Commission has been monitoring this closely, and they're pleased with all the work you've done on this, so thanks. This is a good idea for all the reasons she listed. With that, I move approval.
Would you include in that one person is designated from the...
One from each of the residential districts, historic districts, and one from the downtown historic district.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Catherine?
Is it that they own properties within the districts, or that those properties themselves have been designated as historic buildings?
My understanding was it'd be nice if they were both, but that it wasn't a requirement. Is that correct, Susan?
As it's currently listed, it's not a requirement that they're a resident. In my personal opinion, I feel that I lean towards those representatives being people who actually are in those districts on a day-to-day basis. So yes, for those in the residential districts to actually be resident property owners, and whether that language needs to be changed to say that, or if there's any reason they couldn't actually be designated as resident property owners. But then for the downtown, that's a difference, because the downtown, they would be business owners more than likely. So how you would want to word that, because they're not going to be somebody who probably necessarily lives downtown.
Okay. Catherine, is that?
Okay. Can I clarify this then, as long as you're up at the mic?
Yes.
Would you prefer that the motion specify that they actually be residents of the districts, or can that be decided when the people who are the representatives are chosen as one of the major considerations? What would you prefer?
I would like to think that, the mayor and city council, when making these decisions, will be very fair and thoughtful as to who they place on it. But you asked my opinion. In my opinion, I would like to see that it would say resident owners, because in our historic district, there is a real, like I said, a difference. And I don't say that that's positive or negative. It's just that we're living there. It's our community, as opposed to people who own properties and basically rent it out. And there are many landlords who are very responsible, and many landlords who are maybe less than responsible. And so, for us, those of us actually living in it, and since there would be 3 other slots on the commission, there could be room for landlords, real estate people, other types of expertise, or people wear many hats too. So people might have multiple interests.
Mr. Mayor, with the second's permission, I would modify my motion to specify that they be residents. And I'm not sure how we're going to word that for downtown, but
Right.
someone who operates, owns and operates a downtown going business. Go ahead.
John, please.
Well, Susan and I had had this conversation a couple times, and I'd defer to Mr. McCall on this, because I had posed that question, and Jim's advice was we can't define it as resident property owner.
Oh,
We could only use property owner.
okay.
So
So
that's
this
why-
wouldn't, okay. I will leave the motion as is then.
Okay.
Thanks for that clarification, John and Jim.
Further discussion? Do we have a motion, Mike?
Yeah, by Sorensen and your second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8B, first reading of ordinance 1377, amending City of Vermillion Code of Ordinances, Title 3, Administration, Chapter 32, to create, provide the structure for, and responsibilities of a Human Relations Commission. And Addison, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's good to be back. First off, I'd like to personally thank the council, the mayor, the city staff, and the many others who have all worked hard to get this piece of municipal legislation to where we are at this point tonight. It's been a long process, but as the saying goes, all good things take time, so I want to thank you for putting in that time. Over the last 6 months, the City Council and staff have been reviewing potential ordinance language to establish a Human Relations Commission as provided for in state statutes. Currently, Brookings, Sioux Falls, and Rapid City are the 3 communities in the state with a Human Relations Commission, and over many meetings, it has been the objective of the city to make Vermillion the 4th. The proposed ordinance would establish a commission comprised of 7 individuals. 6 individuals would be appointed to serve a 3-year term, with the 7th position on the commission reserved for a student enrolled in post-secondary educational institution, and that term would be for 1 year. The primary objective of the commission would be to disseminate information and conduct public meetings regarding diversity celebration and anti-discriminatory practice, to engage and cooperate with persons and organizations interested in similar objectives, and to otherwise act to promote human and civil rights for all citizens and visitors of Vermillion. The commission would also receive verified complaints related to alleged discriminatory practice in employment, labor organizations, housing, providing public accommodations or services, banking, and in general circumstances with the city. To elaborate on this procedure, as suggested by the Policies and Procedures Committee and approved for consideration by the Council, the Commission would receive verified complaints and serve a notice of receipt to the complainants and a copy of the complaints upon the respondents for a verified answer. The Commission may dismiss a complaint or investigate the matter further and may hold a predetermination conference with the complainant and/or respondent in order to do so. After considering that information, the Commission could make a determination of probable cause, holding that the discriminatory act either did or did not likely take place. Each party would then be notified of the determination of probable cause, and, if appropriate, the complainant would be referred to the State Commission of Human Rights for further action and/or other appropriate resources. Either party has the right to suggest and request that the Human Relations Commission transfer the matter to the State Commission of Human Rights within 15 days of the receipt of or notice of the receipt of a verified complaint, and either party has the right to transfer the matter to a court of competent jurisdiction at any time. The Commission members would be unpaid community volunteers, so the publication of this ordinance and office supplies for the Commission would be the only known expenses at this time. And finally, the administration recommends approval of the first reading of Ordinance 1377 to establish a Human Relations Commission for the City of Vermillion.
Thank you, Addison. That's a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on this item?
My name's Aaron Kirkhoff. I live in Vermillion. 5 years ago, I wish this was in effect. As a father of a mixed child It's very hard to see people that you grew up with have kids treat your kid like garbage. And I'm going to keep it frank, but I'll keep it, toned down. I'm not going to use the exact word, but when you pick up your kid from Austin School and you hear kids coming from middle school back and forth when they get out saying that your son's a little endlet, add the chicken nugget to the bottom, and then saying derogatory comments to me, it's not really appropriate. We've had garbage thrown at our apartment door. We talked to the apartment owner. They did not do anything. They said they don't get involved. We called the police. Oh, it's a civil matter. Okay, civil matter, we get garbage, and my son's getting called all these things. The neighbor lady had one of the kids live across the hall from us. We were in Section 8 housing. I'm not proud to say that I was in Section 8 housing, but I had to be because my son had medical issues, a rare eye disease called congenital glaucoma. So my dad told me to suck up my pride and actually live there because that's what it's for. It wasn't until I contacted my old principal at the middle school, Mr. Anderson, and I thank him every day that I see him after this. It took him to get it to stop. And I'm not yelling at anybody, but I'm a very passionate individual. And something like this should have been here a long time ago. And I know I read the minutes, and I'm not going to call out the individual who said they don't think that there was an issue here in town. Well, there is, and it struck a nerve when I read it in the paper. So I got the honor of meeting him, and I told him how proud I was of him because it's something that should have been here a long time ago. And I know from hearing kids talk to me that I coached, how they get treated at the middle school sometimes, or in schools in general around town. It's a positive. And I think it's great to have a positive here in town for them so that they have somewhere to go. So they don't have to go through what my son has to go through or what I did. And my main thing is worrying about my kid, not me. I have big, broad shoulders. I can handle it. So I just wanted to take this time to thank you guys when you approve it. And I want to take time to thank him because it meant a lot to me because I had no idea that it was going on. I had some other things that was going on until I got to meet him and he brought it up. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Yes.
Good evening. My name's Joe Mowbray, and I'm a transfer student here at USD, and I'm really looking forward to you guys passing this because, as Addison knows, I'm a part of the LGBT community, and one of the things I actually looked at when I was thinking of transferring here is what both the USD and Vermillion has in regards of LGBT, essentially issue prevention, and one of the things that almost deterred me from coming to Vermillion is really nothing in place in regards of even there being any sign of an LGBT community. So I think by passing something like this shows that Vermillion can be a progressive community that cares about every citizen regardless of their sexual orientation or ethnicity or anything that might make them a minority. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, turn it to council. Tom, please.
Thank you for your comments. I also want to thank Addison McCauley, who has gone above and beyond to get here, to be here to present this, because it's got to be a 6-hour drive, depending on the lead foot. But thank you for coming for this, and thank you for doing all the research you have done in this. To emphasize what Mr. McCauley said, this is a start. This is a really good start to bringing some issues to light, and it allows to find probable cause, not just false claims. It allows cases to be referred to the state if need be, but it also allows and demands that the courtroom doors remain open if someone needs that. So this is all in all a very, very good start, and thank you. And with that, I move approval of this.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1377 to establish a Human Relations Commission. Is there further discussion? Rich, please.
Could I speak to this is in wording. What is a competent jurisdiction? A court of competent jurisdiction?
A court of competent jurisdiction is just taking it into legal matters, to a courtroom, pretty much, is a court of competent jurisdiction. A judge who has gone through law school.
Okay, because wanted to put across that we weren't going to try to judge human rights if it became here. We refer to the state, who is much more qualified. So
Right.
by putting it as a court of common jurisdiction or the state, does that mean or imply that we would try?
On a point of clarification, they have the ability at any time, is what the language states, is that they have the ability at any time to have it transferred, have the matter be taken to the court of competent jurisdiction.
So, go ahead.
The way this ordinance is drafted is in compliance with state law. In SDCL Chapter 20-12, there are a number of discretionary acts that the city can employ in their ordinance. But there are two things that are mandatory. And that is if a complaint is brought before a local agency, whether it's a county one or a municipal one, because counties could do the same as the city's doing here, there is an automatic right within 15 days for either party to go to the State Human Relations Commission. And then at that point, then the local agency loses jurisdiction. If they do not elect to go to the state commission within that 15 days, that's it. They don't go to the State Human Relations Committee or Commission based on my reading of the ordinance and the statute. They stay with the local agency. Then the local agency proceeds, in the event that there's no election to go to the state commission, proceeds to determine probable cause. If there's no probable cause determination, then a decision's set out by the commission giving reasons and so forth. If there is a determination of probable cause, a decision goes out giving reasons also, but there's also a notice that within 20 days, they have an election then to go to state court. Now, the Policies and Procedures Committee did not believe that we did not want the local agency to conduct contested case hearings. And so once the determination of probable cause is made, that's really it for the local agency. The parties either then agree to go to, it would be circuit court in this instance, or not proceed at all. And if within 20 days they haven't proceeded with an election to go to circuit court, then the local agency dismisses it.
Okay. So if I understand
So
correctly,
once you get to probable cause, there's no way, there's no statutory avenue for you to choose the state commission or circuit court.
so there's no way to choose it without stating it this way, is what you're saying?
There's no, you have one choice to go to the state commission, and that's within 15 days after the local agency receives a complaint. If you don't choose to go to the state commission at that time, it stays with the local agency until there's a determination, yes or no, on probable cause. If it's yes, then the parties go to circuit court, or the thing ends.
Okay, I don't know how to read legal. I apologize for that. This doesn't mean we're setting up a court.
No.
Okay, that's what I want to get at.
If I'm-
One other thing,
Go ahead.
please.
As I understood it, Policies and Procedures Commission did not want to create a situation where we are having contested hearings and rulings on evidence and things like that here locally.
It's basically, I feel that we're not qualified. This is the comment. But yes, that's right. That's what we're feeling. I'm sorry these aren't the pages aren't numbered. So I read one sentence here at least 9 times and never understood it. And it says, if the commission determines there is no probable cause to support the allegations of discrimination are well-founded, the commission shall dismiss the verified complaint. And it goes on. I read it over and over again, and I really think that the words "are well-founded" should be stricken. It just confused the living daylights out of me. I couldn't understand the meaning of it. It's 32.54D. D as in dog. Does or does not?
It does.
Okay, then maybe D.
While you're looking, John?
I was just going to note, Jim, if you're looking at that terminology, 3253A1 also uses the phrase well-founded. So for consistency purposes, we may need to strike both of those if Jim's opinion is.
You can, I kind of understand what I think it's trying to emphasize the probable cause discrimination findings have to be based on something substantial, and I think that's why they use the word well-founded that comes out of Brookings ordinance. And so, if you want to take that out of it.
Well, if it's clear to everybody else, then no. I just read it over and over and over again and couldn't understand it. It finally did, I think. But I think it'd be a lot simpler if that was simply stricken, just the allegations of discrimination, then the commission shall do thus and such. But if it takes away a important meaning, then no, leave it there.
I think if you took it out, it would actually have the opposite meaning. Because if you take it out, then it's just.
The determination there is no probable cause to support allegations of discrimination.
I'm wondering if we're still talking about 3253A1. Is that where we are, Jim?
No, well, I'm not, but I'm in 32.54D as in dog,
Okay.
the very first sentence.
I think what you need is a whether. If the commission determines there is no probable cause to support whether the allegations of discrimination are well-founded.
Well, that would work also.
Yes.
You're hired.
That's her job.
Central retirement.
So what about the A? Okay. Mike, do we have anything here?
We've got a motion by Sorensen, a second by Collier-Wise for first reading of the ordinance.
Okay.
I'm guessing it's with the weather included?
Absolutely.
That's W-H-E.
Okay. Any further discussion? This is first reading, so we don't have to do the roll call here. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks, Addison. Are you heading right? Are you
Thank
heading
you.
right back?
No, I'll stay the night, but then I'm heading back to get to work on Wednesday. So, thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll see you on the 18th.
Okay. Item 8C, first reading of ordinance 1379 to amend Title 7 definitions, Chapter 70 zoning regulations, Section 70.110 to amend the definition of a truck. Dan, please.
This is to give a better definition from the out-of-date definition that's currently in the city ordinance. It's very easy for the police department to identify a vehicle that's not in compliance if it's a semi-truck or delivery truck. However, when we get down into the smaller vehicles, the current definition of a truck in the city code of ordinance states 3 tons, and so that's 6,000 pounds. And doing a little bit of research on current vehicles out on the road that you see right now, a Grand Cherokee, its GVRW weight is 4,500 pounds, but its loaded weight is 6,500 pounds, which already surpasses the current code. And a Silverado 2500 HD by itself, GVRW weight without being loaded is at 6,300 pounds. And so increasing the current weight to a generally accepted weight limit will reflect a change which can be more easily enforced. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulation defines a commercial motor vehicle as any vehicle used in interstate commerce to transport passengers or property with a gross vehicle weight rating, gross combination weight rating, gross vehicle weight, or gross combination weight of 10,001 pounds or more. That's the same as the U.S. Department of Transportation, listed at 10,000 pounds or more. So increasing the weight limit from 6,000 to 10,001 pounds would help with enforcement procedures. The police department still has the option within the ordinance for enforcement of the code to make someone go and weigh their vehicle if there is a question. However, raising it to 10,001 pounds eliminates a lot of the vehicles that are currently out there on the road, i.e. the caravans, the Cherokees, and the pickup trucks for code enforcement. Administration recommends approval of the first reading of ordinance 1379, amending the definition of a truck, pending your questions.
Questions? A motion and a second to approve first reading of ordinance 1379. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks, Dave. Item D, Business Improvement District Number 2 Board Appointment. We had a person that last meeting was appointed to the board, but subsequently that person has asked to be taken off of it. And so we had received another form from Martin Prendergast to serve on bid number 2. And with the council's approval, I would recommend that we appoint Martin Prendergast.
Second.
Motion is second to approve Martin. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item E, Vermillion Housing Authority Board appointment. We have an expiration of a term for Elizabeth Abbott in 2018. She has applied to stay on the board. She's been on the board for quite a few years, and I would recommend to the council that we approve reappointing Elizabeth Abbott to the Vermillion Housing Authority Board. A motion is second to approve Elizabeth as continuing on the board. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item F, Utilities Committee Report. John, please.
Thank you. Including in your packet were minutes from 2 different utility committee meetings. As you know, the Heights is building a 74-unit building to house 200-plus residents on North Dakota Street. And the way our code reads, which is the same as with the state's PUC, which governs investor-owned utilities, as well as federal standards in PURPA, basically they call for a separate meter for every residential unit. In building this facility, they would like to use one master meter rather than to have 74 different meters in the building, and as they would be paying most of the utilities for the residents of that establishment. So the code doesn't provide for that. Our code requires a separate meter, but the Public Utilities Commission for our state has in one occasion granted an exception for a dormitory at the School of Mines. And so what the Utilities Committee discussed was trying to look at language that would set up something like a dormitory, although it's not a state-run property on state, with state staff or on state facilities or through the university's housing system, but that is functioning to some degree as a large complex for residents of the university. So the committee asked staff to draft some language. Included in your packet was what would go in 5122 residential service rate, subsection C, which would be for an exclusive student housing, which would spell out where and when a large facility like this could utilize a master meter. We also we tried to blend the large commercial rate with the residential use that would be part of it. So at this point in time, it's to present, as you know, council members, a report of the committee before the council could take any action on it. As we are working through this process, we might have language very similar to present to the city council via an ordinance to address 5122 residential service rate for an exclusive student housing project.
So at this point, this is just an information. It's nothing to be voted on. So do we have to receive it or just? Okay. Motion is second to receive the Utility Commission's report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Certainly. Yeah, yes, sir.
I'm just curious to know, as we move forward with this, is this sort of for one property, or is this going to open the door to future or even some existing, such as, you know what I'm going to say, trailer parks?
Well, that is one of the, the concerns that staff had when we first had this meeting, is that we treat all of our utility customers equally and fairly. And so the language before you tries to make it for a project which is similar to a dorm or a residence hall, depending what the politically correct term is, for a large student housing population. So that is certainly a concern that we had in putting this together, because there's many of our residential rental properties in the community which are student-focused. But how does that match up with respect to this type of arrangement? So that's where we've tried to write something that would work for a property which would emulate a large student housing project.
Which has happened in other, according to what you sent out. It's not unheard of, that's somebody can consider it a, so I just started thinking about the other groups of residents that may want, to go from individual where the owner may just want a master. That's why I asked, but thanks.
Further discussion?
Can I ask?
Steve?
John, I apologize if I did not attend the meeting where this language was approved. But did you talk to USD about the sentences in language that, ask for their essentially sanctioning of the, did you talk to anybody?
I haven't gotten to that yet. I want to get this report to the committee and in the council, and then we'll go from there with the next step, because we'd have at least 2 weeks to be the soonest that we get there. So, but we will do that.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, we already accepted it, didn't we? Okay. All right, then we move to item G, set a special meeting date to canvass the June 5th, 2018 election results. Mike, you had suggested a couple of possibilities.
I'd suggested either Monday, June 11th, at either noon or 5:15 or 7 o'clock, whatever works for the council, or Tuesday, June 12th, probably either noon or 5:15 or whatever. It's probably a 5 or 10 minute meeting, but we do need a quorum. And since we do have just 7 days, if we don't have a quorum on Monday, we almost don't have time to get a new meeting date set to publish an agenda 24 hours in advance for Tuesday.
Preference?
Throw out Monday at 5:15 and see if we
How about Monday at noon?
I can't do Monday at noon. Can we get a quorum?
Monday at 5:15.
Can we get a quorum? Yeah, we can do a quorum at 5:15. So is that the 11th at 5:15? And would you send a memo out, John, please, for that? Thank you. Bid openings, fuel quotes, Mike, please.
Should have had the fuel quotes sitting in front of you. The first quote from Stern Oil on unleaded gasoline, 10% ethanol, $2.45.71 per gallon. Unleaded gasoline regular, $2.68.81. Number 2 diesel fuel dyed, $2.42.33. Number 2 diesel fuel clear, $2.71.98. The second quote was from Burnick Service on 1, $2.50, 2, $2.74, 3, $2.44, and 4, $2.74. Stern Oil would be low on all 4 items.
Council? Motion is second to accept the low bid. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item B, purchase transformers. And Shane, please.
Thank you. Annually, the Light and Power Department requests bids for our electric transformers for both to replenish our inventory and to prepare for specific projects. This year, we requested bids for 9 total transformers of 2 different sizes. The bid docs were sent out to 9 suppliers. We received 6 bids from 4 of those suppliers. Transformer bids are taken and they're evaluated for the operating losses over the transformer's life cycle to determine the low bidder. The total base price is the initial cost to acquire the transformers, while the total evaluated price represents the total cost of its life. The low bidder on the transformers was Irby Utilities, bid number 2, with an initial purchase price of $97,170 and a total evaluated bid of $162,864.80. The 2018 Electrical Distribution Fund does include funding for these purchases. Administration recommends awarding the pad mount transformer bid to the low bidder, Irby Utilities, bid number 2, with an initial purchase price of $97,170 and a evaluated bid of $162,864.80.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
Council? Motion and a second to approve the purchase of the transformers and the low bid. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next is City Manager report. John, please.
Thank you. Just a couple of items. Annually, we do some of this, but we'll be smoke testing of some of our sanitary sewer lines, and that will take place June 12th to the 15th. We do this to detect leaks or breaks in our sanitary sewer system. Should any smoker enter your home or business, please contact the crew that you might see out doing it or our city offices. That does indicate a leak, that sewer gas would be coming through. Planning Commission also meets next Monday, June 11th, and we'll work out which room the City Council's in and which room Planning Commission is in. We'll make sure that you go to the right meeting, so you're not canvassing at the same time. At this point in time, we have two items. One would be consideration of a mobile home exception language. This would be to allow pre-1976 mobile home units to be relocated. This was an issue that kind of arose a couple meetings ago with respect to a rezoning in the 700 block of Cottage. The second one is the property owner of the Madison Park Townhomes owns quite a bit of land on the east side of Norbeck Street there. As part of a federal grant funding application they're working with, they need to have a neighborhood plan for the property they own. And so they would be presenting their neighborhood plan for that property. That would go to Planning Commission on the 11th and the City Council on the 18th. That would be their recommendation or their thoughts as to how they might develop the property. Another step in our Prentice Park renovation, the parking lot. At this point in time, it looks like we should get that open on Wednesday if our weather holds. They'll be completing the final couple of steps tomorrow and then striping it, and we hope to have that open on Wednesday of this week. Just a reminder that East Main Street between Plum and Walker Street will be closed this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the 7th through the 9th. That closure is from 7 to 10 p.m., and then Sunday the 10th, it is from 4 to 7 p.m., and that is for the performances related to the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival performances. And then finally, I guess it's that time of year again, the city will be fogging for mosquitoes. We're going to try an approach where we do the entire community at once. We've loaded up a couple different pieces of equipment to do this, and so we're either going to do it Tuesday, June 5th, or Wednesday the 6th. It'll begin about 9 o'clock either evening. If you would prefer that the machine not fog as it passes your property, we call it the do not spray list, please let us know at City Hall here, and we'll be happy to place you on that list to do that as we pass by. There's information unavailable on the city's website on just about all these items if somebody would like to take a look at it that way.
Thank you, John. Any comments or questions for our city manager? Seeing none, then stump Mike, invoices payable. Any questions on any of the invoices that you'd like to question? Motion is second to pay our bills. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We have no consensus agenda, Steve. Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We are done.